Two things are very important. One would be, do we have people on our leadership team that also represent our consumer? Do they represent the consumer, or can they deeply empathize with that consumer? And then the other one is, how do you staff a leadership team with people who complement you, not people who are you? And that really allows you to think forward, to see around corners, anticipate threats. I think that's how you have the most successful teams, by really having diversity of thought.
What are the key ingredients to starting a business and growing a leadership team? We touch on some of these topics today, and I know you're going to walk away with ideas that you can use in your work and your life. I'm your host, Natalie Benamou. Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, a Her C-Suite radio podcast. I'm also the founder of Her C-Suite, where we help women in the second half of your career plan your portfolio life. Whether it's landing a board role or becoming an entrepreneur, you are going to find ways to get joy and fulfillment. Visit us at hercsuite.com. I cannot wait for you to hear my conversation today with Amanda Clark, who is the CEO of Wellbiz Brands. I had a fangirl moment interviewing her because I love their brands, and it was so incredible to hear how she has built her leadership team, what it's like to be on corporate boards, and also how she infuses authenticity as a superpower. I can't wait for you to hear all the details, so let's get started now. Amanda, I am so excited to welcome you to Women Leaders on the Move today. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
You've been in some really amazing companies and roles. What has that been like leading up to this amazing leadership role you're in now?
Frankly, when I was in college, I went to school to become an actress, and I had a backup as a psych major. So, when it came to graduating, frankly, I felt a little bit lost. I knew I needed to get something done to help pay for my school loans. I thought marketing would be a great career because it kind of balanced the creativity and analytics, which I was interested in. So I was lucky enough to get a job at Procter and Gamble, working for some of the biggest beauty and wellness brands. So honestly, I thought that I would do that for maybe a year and go try to pursue acting, and a year turned into 12. So I was there for 12 years. It was an amazing training ground. And I then wanted to do something maybe a little bit more fast paced. And that's how I got into the food industry. So I worked for Taco Bell for 8.5 years, and I did a whole variety of things. I started in marketing, but I really had a dream of becoming a CEO. So I wanted to make sure I could get different experiences. So at Taco Bell, I started in marketing. I then went on to be a general manager of the Canada business, came back, ran development. So it really, I think, rounded out my skill set. And then from there, I was fortunate to join the C-suite of Papa John's. I ran development, and then eventually I became the COO of International, which I really think gave me some of the last points of experience needed before I became a CEO at Wellbiz, which is where I am right now.
That is so interesting. And I'm going to just touch on the acting piece of it. What I'm curious about is, in all those positions, tapping into, you have to be adaptable when you're an actress and you're learning, and you have to learn quickly and be a curious learner, aside from being able to speak and all of those things. Did that help in any of those roles, like tap into that joy, that love that you had for that as you were growing through your career?
Yeah, no, this is good. Now it makes me think my ROI of my degree is maybe it paid off more than what I thought it did. Yeah, I guess in acting, you're thrown into different situations, right? And it's always improv, and you have to appear confident, even though you may not know or the situation or haven't had a lot of background. And I do think that help just being able to have confidence and be willing to take on any adventure. And that probably does, harken back to some of the things that I did in theater. And then, of course, I do think it helps with, you have to present a lot, especially now in my role as a CEO. And certainly I think that the acting background tends to help there.
I love that. And as you think about what you're doing now, and you've been gearing up the company to now be heavily female led, which is unique and exciting. And of course, near and dear to my heart. So I want to hear more about what that transition and transformation has been like for you with your leadership team and leading the company. It makes sense because of your brands, but I'd love to hear your story on that.
I always think, as much as you can, how can your leadership team and the people who work on your business either reflect your actual consumer or at least be able to extremely empathize with that consumer? And, I will say, I worked on Pampers when I didn't have kids. So, sometimes it doesn't always match one to one, but the ability to really empathize and get into the consumer's head is helpful. And I think for Wellbiz, our primary consumer is a woman, a mass affluent woman, 35 to let's call it 65. And I did want to have primarily women on my leadership team. And I think what I've seen throughout my journey hiring people, when you have a goal like that, you have to be very intentional with it. If you're working with a recruiter, they're going to solve for the easiest common denominator, which isn't always the profile that you're looking for. You have to be extremely intentional about it and relentless about pursuing that in order to actually make it happen.
And you have multiple brands. Can you talk a little bit about the brands and the synergy between them? Because they're unique and there is some synergy, obviously, with some of them. So, how does that work within the organization and leading a company with diverse and synergistic brands?
The one thing that really unites our brands is the consumer. So I think that makes it easy. If we had very, very different consumers for each of the brands, I think it's a little bit harder to find that synergy. So for most of our brands, we do have that mass affluent female core, like I said, 35 to 65, probably 100,000 plus in income. And that really crosses brands. So there's Drybar, there's Amazing Lash, there is Elements Massage, Radiant Waxing, and then Fitness Together. So it's united by that consumer, and then it's obviously united that all of the brands are franchise brands. So in franchising, I think no matter what the brand, you tend to have the same challenges and opportunities. And I think working across 5 brands, you can really see, okay, if this is a challenge or opportunity on this brand, it may likely happen on this one. So how can we get ahead of it? So I think that it makes it easier. So when I first came, I was like, oh my gosh, this is quite daunting to learn 5 brands. But I think if you look at them as having a lot of those core similarities, it makes it a lot easier and a lot more efficient.
I'm curious about all of them being franchise brands. And also, you can buy the product. For example, I showed you my dry bar, my dry bar favorite tool that I use every day, multiple times a day. So you can buy those consumer products at a Sephora or at an Ulta or wherever. Also dry bar standalone, but I'm now learning that that is actually a franchise, which I did not know. So how does that work? As you're building out the brand, you have product that can be purchased outside, and then you have franchises. How does that work together?
All of the brands you want to look at, if we were to acquire another one, what are the different, I guess, revenue streams that can come to the franchisee, right? So for Dry Bar, yes, the core revenue stream is hair services. So, this our signature blowouts. But by also selling retail, that's another revenue stream for the franchisee. We do the same thing or similar, I would say, at Elements Massage. Our core is massages. Also, we just started doing skincare, facials, but we now have a retail component where the consumer can buy the products, the skincare products that their esthetician use. So I think it's a good thing both for the consumer because you're in the moment, you're getting that service. If you're getting your hair done and you had an amazing experience with a Dry Bar Buttercup hair dryer, we would want you to be able to purchase that at our shops too. So I think it benefits not only the consumer but the franchisee with just multiple points of revenue.
What are some of the opportunities that you're seeing? I know you're not only on your leadership team, but you're also looking to grow female led franchises. What has that been like as you've been looking at the different product lines and franchise business lines?
When I look at this business, it has such a different makeup of franchisees than other businesses that I work for. So our franchisees are probably right around 60% women, which is amazing. And that's fairly uncommon in franchising. So, one thing that we're focused on is wow, we have so many great women. We have great women examples on many of our brands, and how can we get more women like them to come in. So we do everything from just frankly sourcing friends and family to come in and join the franchise to maybe women customers that are extremely interested in the brand. How can we turn that interest into a passion for business perhaps? So those are things that we're trying to do the link between, again, the successful women that we have, bringing more in from the franchise standpoint, and then obviously on our leadership team as well. And that's how we were able to hire, I think, some of the fantastic women that we have today.
Well, one of the things that we focus in on at her C suite is having a portfolio career. And part of that is becoming a lot of times an entrepreneur or serving on boards. And I'm curious now, listening to what you're saying, if someone were to leave their corporate role, what would the ideal profile be of someone to, you mentioned friends and family joining the franchisee, group, but how would someone that has left their corporate role that might have 20, 25, 30 years experience think about being a franchise? What are some of the things that she should think about? And I say she because most of our listeners are women, but it's okay for the men too.
Franchising should be promoted more, frankly, amongst these groups, because I think for women, it can provide the flexibility to really balance work and your personal life, which I think that is a critical factor in pursuing business ownership. And obviously, it allows women to be able to lead and really create impact within their communities. And I think franchising provides a sort of a structure in which to do that. We have tools, we have training, we have assistance from real estate to hiring to operations. And I think that can make perhaps individual business ownership a little less daunting. I think it's a much lower barrier to entry than just starting from scratch. And I would love, to see more women who, especially who have had corporate roles, come into franchising, because I think they already have that business sense. And then this is just a stepping stone to help them start their own business.
Yeah. So if they're thinking about, and I'm keep thinking about our listeners who have that corporate background, and you went marketing, you worked globally. A lot of the people that I know and that are in our community have similar tracks. What would you say are the things that are really helpful in starting that franchise? And it's really wonderful that you have all that support system. But what are some other things that you think would be beneficial? Is it having led teams globally, or, for example, or done multiple different verticals? Maybe you did finance and then you did marketing, or what are some of those other attributes that would be helpful to be successful in leading a company underneath, a franchise?
Any kind of background in where you've had to look at P&Ls, where you've had to understand, how do you drive and derive more profit, that certainly helps. I think the franchisees who are closest to their business, closest to their P&Ls, and understanding those different levers, certainly have, maybe a advantage in terms of being more successful. I also think, in franchising, you're going to have to hire your team. You're going to have to hire, and they're going to be all different types of people that probably have a different background than you do. So I think having had led a team, hired people, managed very different personalities, because that's what it is at the end of the day, is certainly going to help. And any background in customer service, working in a complex organization is going to serve you well, because you're going to really understand, again, what it means to lead different types of people and then provide a great experience for your end consumer.
In the leadership role that you've had, and you've had other leadership roles, you've served on some boards also. What has that been like in terms of bridging your experience level to those board roles, and what have you liked the best out of that?
When I started, I've been been fortunate enough to sit on the board of Coursera, which is now a public company, for 5 years. And, I remember when I first joined that board, it's the whole like imposter syndrome. And I still have that thinking, gosh, everybody else is so much more successful, smarter than me. And I really had to, I think, get over that and gain confidence in, when you sit on a board, you're not always the subject matter expert of that company. So how can you learn quickly, be curious, ask questions? And then my role as a board member is to help provide governance. So if I see something or have questions, I need to feel confident enough to speak up, even though, certainly in the beginning it was hard because I felt like, gosh, all these other board members have so much more experience than me, so I'm probably asking a stupid question. But I think that's okay. And you need to feel comfortable doing that in order to be successful. So I think that has provided an amazing experience for me to just get to know people in different industries, build my own confidence, learn more about governing a company, which certainly has served well in my CEO role that I have right now.
The imposter syndrome, I think women, as we think of successful women and people that are hearing this and look at your background, would assume that, confident because you've led all these companies, but we all have those moments, even with strong backgrounds and having led large P&Ls or what have you. What advice you give to women that are thinking about taking that leap and they may be self-doubting? Because we all hear those voices of like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Even though you have you have more than the boxes to check, let me tell you, on serving on a board. Absolutely. So what are some of the things that you tell yourself, and what would you tell someone else?
When I first started my career at Procter and Gamble, I felt that I was not the norm in terms of the hire. I didn't look like them. I probably didn't dress like we used to call them proctoids. And I didn't have my business degree. So I felt going in just, gosh, I really need to sort of assimilate. I need to be like them so I can be successful. And I remember, I was probably a couple months in, and it probably was my 3 up manager at the time, Diane Dietz, who was a very successful CEO in other companies as well, brought me in her office and she said, "Why do you think you're successful here?" And I was like, I don't know. I'm trying. And she's like, "Why are you dressing like this? Why are you acting like this is not who I hired?" And she said, "I want to be really clear with you. I hired you to be you, not to be them." And that was a pivotal moment, I think, in my life, in my career, which was, I'm here because of the diverse thought that I bring, because I'm not like everybody else, perhaps. And I need to embrace that instead of trying to be something that I'm not. So that is what I think about when I get those thoughts of like, oh my gosh, everybody's smarter than me, everybody is more successful. You know what? I'm here for a reason. I need to be myself, and that's how I can be successful. And frankly, if they don't like me as how I present, then this isn't the right opportunity for me anyway.
So good. And I think that is the thing we have to remind ourselves is to be authentic. Before we started, we talked about leading authentically. And I can only imagine how that is within your organization with creating that amazing leadership team, but probably I'm also guessing all the way up and down. What have you seen with that authenticity leading an organization like yours?
I hope what it has done is, it's enabled us to attract different types of people. And also, I think it's led us to be able to take a chance on some people that maybe they wouldn't have gotten this opportunity because they don't look like the stereotypical mold of, what that position is supposed to look like. And I think that's fantastic. I want to be able to have people feel comfortable to be themselves so they can produce their best work. And I see that in our organization. I've seen that in other organizations that I have led. You know, getting that out of the way, which is, you don't have to be something that you're not, because at the end of the day, that's going to impede you actually doing your work. Just come to work as you, and then we can all be successful. So I think it's enabled us to do better work. It's enabled us to have really interesting teams of people from all types of different backgrounds. And I think when you get that diversity of thought and you enable people to be comfortable sharing their opinions, that's how you can really challenge the status quo and get to, I think, more breakthrough growth than you would have been able to do without that.
And especially now, there's so much happening at the speed of, I mean, it's crazy. Like change is happening every day. There's always something new. And I would imagine that having that diverse thought has to be tremendously beneficial. How has that helped you as we are amidst when this comes out, it'll be in the summer and there's change going on all around us with external factors that impact business. So, how is that the thought leaders, how is that helping with kind of looking forward in your organization?
As a CEO, to me, I want to surround myself with people who think differently. I don't need a leadership team full of Amanda Clarks, because we're all going to think the same, very similarly, and we're probably going to have a ton of blind spots. So when I staff a team, I want it with people who have different, frankly, different skill sets than myself, who think differently. And that's how you're able to kind of peek around corners and see what's coming. It's very tempting to hire people who think exactly like you, but that's when I think as a business, you leave yourself exposed to, not seeing trends or not seeing risks. And I think I've been fortunate to have a lot of people who, certainly feel comfortable saying, Amanda, that's a stupid idea. And if you do that, here's what the consequence can be. And I think that's why it's important to have that diversity of thought and to really staff your teams with people who are different than you.
As you're looking forward through a wide windshield ahead, what are you most excited about? Either your own growth or the growth of your company. What are you excited about?
I would say I think there's an opportunity to put our brands in many more communities and just serve and delight women and some men, bringing them more confidence. I think that's a huge opportunity just to expand and bring these brands that I think are beloved to more people. I think that's a great opportunity. So I look at growth as something that really excites me. And, for myself and my own career, this was always my dream, to be able to be a CEO and to hopefully bring up more people and allow them to have opportunities that maybe they never thought they would.
So good. I could talk to you all day. It's so hard to end conversations like this. I'm like, oh no, it's over. If people want to learn more about you and your company and all the things, where is the best place for them to go to find out about all the opportunities we've been talking about?
So I would say, just look for Wellbiz Brands, and we're always hiring. We're always looking for more people who have a passion for beauty, who have a passion for wellness and the consumer, who think differently. I'd love for people to check us out on LinkedIn, and maybe they'll even see a job that inspires them, and that would be fantastic.
I am so glad, and I will have that in the show notes. And I'm so glad we had the opportunity to have this conversation. Thank you for being on the show today. It's been so fun.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. I really had a great time, and I'm sure you did too. If you found this episode helpful, will you share it with a friend or colleague today? Lift her up, tell her that she should use authenticity as her superpower and that you believe in her and she should believe in herself. Keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.